Hello and welcome to the iGlobal Great Big Indian Wellness Show. I am Bhavna Barrett. I'm your host for today, and I'm talking to the amazing Ambika Sampat today. And today we're tackling a really, really great topic. So the session is going to be absolutely incredible. I'm going to give you a quick rundown about Ambika, so you get a bit of a flavor of the kind of conversation we're going to have today. Today we're talking about how to optimize your relationship to yourself, your access to power and love. A lot of times we forget about the self. So Ambika is the co-founder of FitBanker, a global online health transformation platform, which is committed to eradicating lifestyle diseases and transforming 1 billion lives. Ambika leads the coaches program as well as the healthy relationships program at FitBanker, and she's committed to human beings unleashing their unlimited potential. Ambika is also a doctorate in obstetrics and gynecology, and she's born and raised in Zambia. She's a global citizen who's lived across 4 continents and delivered numerous talks on international platforms. And I'm delighted to have you here today, Ambika, to talk about this absolutely fascinating subject of optimizing your relationship to the self and your access to power and love. So how are you this morning? And thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Bhavna, and thank you to all the hosts. It's an absolute honor and privilege to be able to be here, connect with you, and just contribute and share lifelong lessons learned, wisdom, and something I'm deeply passionate about, which is people getting reconnected to their authentic self. So I'm great, and it was exciting to wake up this morning to get ready for an early morning show and recording.
Brilliant, brilliant. I mean, we're going to be talking about this fascinating subject today. So without kind of like, beating around the bush, let's get started. You're the expert here, and I'd love to hear a bit more about this because as I know a lot of people that are watching will be as well. Sorry, I'm just making sure that I have everything in front of me so that I can ask you the right questions. So obviously, with optimizing kind of this subject that we're talking about, optimizing your relationship to the self, a child is born free. We don't have any inhibitions when we're born. We're whole, complete. Then we get imposed into all these sets of rules and beliefs, of the people around us, your upbringing, your education, social media these days, what you're exposed to, your peers. And then gradually over time, we develop this ego, this social self, because, we're wired for love. But the ego is like this shield, isn't it? It protects us from the outside world, but also prevents us from loving ourselves and our lives. It's this catch-22, in my opinion. It's like it's there to help you to some extent, but it also then stops you from maybe doing your best or getting to your, achieving your best. And it impacts so many of our decisions throughout our life, right? And it comes from a fear-centric, past-based context. So self-discovery, as you would call it, Ambika, entails breaking away from these conventions, right? And like reconnecting with your true, authentic self. So, what I'd love to talk about today is a little bit about how we do this. How can people do this? And I know that you do this through FitBanker already. So let's talk about how, if studies are showing us over the last, few years, they're showing us that relationships are the biggest contributor towards stress, which shouldn't be. We shouldn't be like that, right? Like relationships should be something that bring us happiness and not stress. We shouldn't be stressing about what someone said or how they said it. But we do. It's one of the biggest stress contributors. So why is that? Why have we become like that?
Such a great question. And I firstly just love the way you introduced me. I wanted to hear you just talk because you bring such passion to it. So it was just amazing to just hear you in your moment, in your zen, which is just fascinating. So, exactly like you mentioned, when we think of relationships, we think of love, we think of peace, we think of joy. And surely that's what masses and media have made us believe. So you get born and then you'll experience that in most instances. In some cases, some don't. But in a parental home or with your guardians, there's an experience of being loved, being nurtured, being cared. And sometimes that isn't there, right? But more so when you then go on and expose yourself to external media, entertainment, movies, etc., or even fairy tales for kids. It's all about this romanticized notion of relationships. And therein begins the problem, because two things happen then. One is relationships exist in a context which is me and another. Therefore, I need another to make me happy, whether it's the parent. And spiritually, like in the first 7 years of our existence, we are completely associated with parents. In fact, studies show and ancient wisdom tells us that up until the age of 4 or 5, a child really doesn't have that independent identity, right? Up until the age of 2 to 3, they're very much relating to themselves as one entity with their mom. And then they start getting this notion of, I am me, I am whatever their name is. I'm Ambika. This is my toy. This is my room. This is my outfit. So the individualization starts showing up. And then when you become and relate yourself as an individual entity,
Yeah.
then the way relationships only show up is me and another. And when we start getting conformed or conditioned to believing relationships only exist in the context of an external factor, another person, then we're constantly leaning in to parents or friends or siblings or society or teachers to feel validated and to feel loved and to feel belonged. And we carry on that way. And inevitably, in any household, no matter how beautiful your upbringing has been or how disruptive it's been, there are moments where that young age self then has an experience of feeling like I don't belong. It could be as simple as a sibling being born into your family, and instantly the child feels their tension's gone off of them.
Mhm.
And then they feel like I'm not loved. Now, this is not conscious thinking. This is very subconscious thinking that happens without us even knowing. But subconsciously, like you just described, that false entity, that false sense of self, that false identity is birthed in that moment to protect us from that experience of feeling like I'm not loved. Right? It could be a parent giving your sibling another toy or feeding them first, or you coming last in a school race or not first in a test, whatever it is, right? Or being picked on by others, others laughing at you, mocking you, abused physically, emotionally, sexually. For a child, the magnitude of those incidents doesn't matter. All of them are experienced the same way. And the one way they experience that is, I am not loved, something is wrong here. And then the false identity gets created purely to compensate for that way of being. And then we go and become overachievers or perfectionists or extroverts and introverts, whatever labels and identities we have as an adult stems from those formative years and those subconscious choices we make. I am not X, I am X. And so relationships only will then be fulfilling on one purpose, which is, how do I put myself in an environment where I feel loved, safe, and belonged? And guess what? You will only set yourself up for failure because the other is also seeking the same. And so incompleteness begets incompleteness. And when people get into relationships, even a job for that matter,
Yeah.
let alone intimate relationships or getting with friends, we will keep looking for people that will validate our self-worth. And nobody can do that 100% because they're
Yeah.
dealing with their own world, their own realities, their own perceptions. And we inevitably keep feeling inadequate. We inevitably keep feeling I'm not there. And even if you are accomplishing everything on your to-do list, you have a brief moment of, yes, I made it, but then what next? Right? And I want to have the audience really pause at this moment and just look at, where in my life do I keep feeling inadequate, like I'm not there, like I'm not heard, I'm not loved? It only stems from this broken relationship and context of relationship, which is others need to fulfill me. And so going back to the question, which is, why on earth do relationships cause us the greatest amount of stress, as studies show us currently, is because of this broken notion of what relationships are. And there's nothing ever that
Fascinating.
sets us up, nothing that sets us up in our formative years of how to relate to another human being. And if we ever got taught that in primary schools, then we would be able to live in
Mm.
extremely harmonious ways. But that education is currently missing. It wasn't always in ancient Gurukul systems or Vedic teachings. We were taught how to be with others, and that stemmed with how we can be with ourselves. But that, in a nutshell, or not in a nutshell, in a long in a more long explanation is really symptomatic of why there's such a breakdown in relationships
I
now.
mean, the way you explain that, so many examples already come to my mind. But how do you learn to love yourself? Like, like everyone talks about self-care. It's a trendy term these days. Like, you should have some self-care time. But what actually is self-care? Like, why, how do you learn to actually, you know, be alone and be happy to be alone? Like, we fear loneliness. People fear to be alone. They're like, I can't possibly be alone. Or I hear a lot from some of my friends who are single, and they're like, oh, I'm just going to die single. Nobody loves me. I can't find the right partner. Again, society dictates that if you are not with a partner, something must be wrong with you, right? But maybe
Yeah.
you just love yourself and you want to spend more time with yourself. So how do you learn to love yourself? Or in your opinion, do you think it's important to focus on being with people that love you back? Like sometimes understanding that you are loved and the concept of love. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So great question. And I'm going to dissect that into three parts. The first bit is around self-love. And in the West, and I think it's kind of filtering and in some ways contaminating the modern age Eastern mindset too, where self-care or self-love is reduced to a spa date, to, entertaining our sense gratification, that immediate relief. And surely being in an environment that's relaxing does impact mental well-being. So I don't want to discard that or kind of dismiss that. But what we're talking about, loving the self, is a far deeper reconnection or rather healing journey, where,
Mm-hmm.
as I said in my first or earlier response, there is a disconnect that happens in our formative years. We forget who we authentically are, and we start relating to ourselves as this false sense of self, which is constantly seeking self-worth, self-validation externally. Loving yourself is taking the journey within, where you connect with who you truly are. And who you truly are is love. Who you truly are. And I don't mean love as an emotion, a sentiment. It is your core essence. The way the core essence of fire is heat and sugar is sweetness. You can't separate the two. Similarly, the core essence of what it is to be human is love. And we've forgotten that. And so we've disconnected and unplugged from that. And then we have this egoic mind that keeps telling us otherwise, and we have all these real diminishing narratives of ourselves. I am lazy, I'm bad, I'm not loved, I'm poor, because we don't accomplish what society dictates or what we think we need to prove ourselves out there as. When we pause and just take the journey within, and how you do that is, there's a lot of self-discovery programs. Meditation is step one. And meditation is not to calm the mind, it actually gives us access to abiding with authentic self. We get to separate ourselves from our thoughts and just almost become the witnesser of the thoughts. And if it's, you say, I have a body and I have a mind. And if you're using that language in a context of the body and the mind being this objective
Yeah.
notion, then who is the I that's talking about these things is what you start reflecting on. And I'll come to that in a moment. But loving the self is deeply through three aspects. One is get a coach on yourself, like doing it by yourself. You could accomplish it through books because there's an amazing amount of literature and guidance out there. However, it's longer and depends on your own self-discipline. So I'd say get a coach, get a mentor, put yourself in the community. In Sanskrit, they call this satsang. Community matters massively, right? You are the average of the 5 people you spend most time with, in the words of Jim Rohn, and that truly applies to every one of us. So the more you're in a community that's picking you up and lifting you up, it matters. But this also feeds into the second part of your question around, do you need to be with people that therefore love you only? And I'm going to say something that's slightly contradictory here, which is, once you're on the self-discovery journey, and in spirituality, the example of a lotus flower is often given, which is a real spiritual plant, because this beautiful flower only grows in muddy waters. And what I mean by muddy waters is not, therefore, others are lesser than you and you emerge and become greater. No. But in those turbulent times or environments, do you discover your greatest version of yourself? And so, sure, company matters because it influences your core being. But at the same time, you've got to get grounded in who you authentically are for yourself. And that gives you access to who you are for others. And the third bit is around loneliness. You could be lonely in an entire concert with thousands of people or with yourself. And what I really realized is a decade ago, before I started my spiritual journey and self discovery and coaching, I used to look at my mates that would go to the movies by themselves and wonder what on earth has ever overcome them to go and watch a movie by themselves. And don't they have any friends? And really, they're kind of losers to have to do something like that. But actually, when I take away that top layer of judgment, what was really going on with me is, God forbid I ever get caught in that situation doing something by myself, because what it must mean about me surely is that I don't have any friends and that I
Mhm.
don't belong and that I am not good enough. Ultimately, that's the concern. And that's what we try to avoid at all costs, the feeling of inadequacy. And peeling that layer away, what I really get present to is, fast forward to last year, what lockdown had a lot of people experience was deep discomfort and disruption. And it was not because our freedom was taken away to go out, it was the distractions were taken away. The cafe, the restaurant, the drinks, the bars, the pubs, the socializing, whatever, people, even healthy socializing, out at treks, whatever. All of those are distractions from us getting present to our internal state. And when you're left your own accord in your own space, you have to deal with it. There's nowhere to go to. And if you really want to do yourself a, like service, true service, then listen to the uncomfortableness, go within and look at, why am I feeling the way I'm feeling and how do I heal this? And when people don't do that, that's when we really go down a negative spiral. And that's why we struggle to be with others in our own households, when countries and nations are shut down, or forget others even in our own company, because there's this deep restlessness of all the unhealed wounds and parts of ourselves that we've disowned.
You're in a beautiful relationship yourself, and there are people around you that there are. And what tips can you give people when they are, they're thinking about love in relationships, and nurturing or harboring that?
I love it. So the first point I'm going to actually give is aligned with the attachment point you said. A daily reminder for every single person. And if you need to, then put this reminder on your phone, viewers, is everything is impermanent. Now, when I say everything is impermanent, for some people, it becomes a bit unsettling. The notion of, okay, if everything's impermanent, then what? Then should I just check out of here, book out, do whatever I want to do because it's impermanent anyways? No, it's quite the opposite. When you go to a hotel, you know for a fact you're there for a finite period, 2 days, 1 week, whatever it is. You will not get
Mhm.
attached to the pillow. You will not hug and cry the pillow when you're leaving. You know you're done with it and then you're going to carry on. My invitation to everybody is, relate to the people in your life that way, knowing that every single relationship in your life is impermanent. And therefore, how do I make this moment the best moment of my life? If this moment is all I have with this person, because all there is truly this moment, the past is done. There's no guarantee the future is going to exist. Like March 21st last year, nobody in the UK knew, or around the world, that the next day or the next 2 days we're going to be completely in lockdown, or what even lockdown meant, right? But it happened. There's no guarantee of what the next moment brings. You only own this moment. And in this
Mhm.
moment, own the impermanence. And in the impermanence, there's freedom, there's joy, there's beauty, and true love and abundance to be experienced. And the best way to explain it is, I'm going to take this sheet of paper and just like crush it. We think that being attached means living life like this, right? Like holding on to
Mhm.
everything. Every relationship is mine, just what Bhavna said. And therefore, if I say it's impermanent and be detached, it must surely mean live this way. And then there's a sense of vacuum and emptiness. No. When I say bask in the impermanence, I mean know that everything's going to be gone one day. Open that fist and enjoy it for what it is in this moment. See people as they are, whole and complete, embrace their flaws as well as their greatness. If we focus only on the flaws, gosh, you are robbing yourself of the richness there is in the rest of them. Or if you also see only the greatness in some people and you look up at them, again, it's only coming from a place of you looking at yourself as lesser than. So bask the impermanence, be in this moment, appreciate the whole of someone, their not so great and great parts, right? Is point number one, because therein you will truly have access to freedom and joy. Number two, which is an unmissable daily practice for me, is gratitude. Whether you do it first thing in the morning or when you hit the sack before you sleep, this is my daily journal. I've got it here. And every day without fail, I will put down what it is I'm grateful for. Because gratitude is the mother of all values. When you're grateful, the energy within your body is operating and vibrating at a level of abundance. There's a lightness. You're actually healing a lot of your body when you're standing in gratitude. There's no way you can be resentful and grateful at the same time, right? And there's days we wake up tired, stressed, upset, whatever. We're carrying on the memory of a past breakdown and you're feeling empty. In those moments, start with the basics. Just start with, hey, I'm grateful to have a roof over my head. If you can't really be too deep and generous, but the more you write, the deeper you'll go and the more you get present to, actually, I have a lot to be grateful for. So second is make gratitude your default. Put reminders again on your phone or post-its around your home to say, what are you grateful for? And in that moment, just pause and interrupt yourself. My husband and I, at times when we're in the middle of a heated argument, whoever is less heated will say, hey, pause. What's three things you're grateful for? And in that moment when you're angry, you just want to be right and jab the other person. You don't want to unplug and start thinking about gratitude. But it's such a brilliant shift because instantly the argument gets diffused when you start thinking about gratitude, right? So gratitude is an absolute winner. And the third and last one to wrap up is self-forgiveness. Now, this is an entire webinar and module that we teach on our 10 weeks healthy relationships program, right? And we just did a forgiveness module in the program we're in currently. But essentially, forgiveness is to do with nobody. It has nothing to do with anybody. Again, another big misconception. Forgiveness is 100% to do with you. A negative charge towards another is a negative charge towards yourself. Forgiveness is simply giving yourself permission to give up the past being any other way than the way it was. It gives you access to arriving in the present moment, whether it's something you did or said or somebody else did or said. You release them from that expectation that they should have been any other way than the way they are. And daily, again, I will daily journal forgiveness. Who do I need to release from my memory? What negative charge do I need to get out of my system? Even if ethically, morally, society wise, somebody is deemed guilty, the choice is yours. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And if you want to be happy, then you've just got to let things be the way they are. You take away the personalization from it, which means it happened to me. Nothing is ever happening to us. It's always happening for us to discover what is it that we need to grow and heal. And self-forgiveness liberates you from the past. It truly gives you access to shifting. So daily, write down. And women are great at making ourselves wrong. We sleep with so much guilt. And that is toxic because we wake up then in a disgruntled state and that spills over in everybody in our life. The more you can heal yourself by forgiving yourself for everyday stuff or past-based stuff, the more you wake up every day with hitting the reset button as a new you in every given moment, because it is a new moment and a new opportunity. And that's all I have, Bhavna.
That's fantastic. I love it. I love it. I love those 3 tips that you've just given us, because everyone that's watching, I really hope that you take those 3 things because they are really key. Gratitude is key, self-love, gratitude, and also forgiveness. Forgiveness is a really big one. And I think culturally as well, we have this inbuilt system culturally, whether it's passed through generations, where we don't necessarily know that there are a lot of mindset shifts that we need to have about ourselves and our families and people around us. And so work on that. It's been lovely speaking to you. I've had a really great conversation, and I'm sure everyone that's watching has been fascinated with this.